Welcome to Horror Movies and Beyond, a show about reviewing horror movies for the living to understand the dead. I'm your host, Ivotres Littles, and this is Shudderary, where we go behind the screens of Shudder original and exclusive movies. Today, I have a really awesome special guest, Joe Lynch, who directed some of my favorite segments for Creepshow TV series and Shudder exclusive movie, Mayhem. Thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. I'm just so glad I'm in this cool box with the title up here and the movie stars over there and you directly that way. I wish it wouldn't be crazy if I could do this and you see my hand come into the other side. Whoa.
I would run out of here.
Well, maybe next time.
Maybe,
that would be fucking great. Oh, are we allowed to curse?
Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead. It's fine.
Okay, I've already screwed this up.
YouTube.
All right, take two, everybody. Back to one.
I've seen worse on YouTube.
Okay, good. All right, we're good. I swear, I'll keep it. You know what? That was my one F-bomb, my PG-13 F-bomb. That was not sexually related, so we're fine. We'll keep the rest of it clean. I fucking swear. Oh, see, I did it again. Damn it. This is going great.
It's going perfect. You got it. I almost have a cup like that.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
For joining me on this, on Shudderary. It's so great to finally get to see you and talk to you. It's an honor.
Like you're the cool one. I'm just here to kind of just answer questions and just make sure that you have everything you need. So no, this is gonna be great. It's an honor to be on Shudderary. With Shudder, I feel like I've had a very long history with them, but I was a fan before, so it's nice to be part of that like Shudder alumni or Shudder family because they've been great to me and I've been giving them content for years in very, very many forms, everything. I mean, not just Mayhem and Creepshow, but we have the sitcom that I was on, which is so weird to even say, called Holliston that Adam Green created that I'm a co-star of. Everly, my movie with Salma Hayek, has been on Shudder before. Chillerama has been on Shudder. So yeah, it's I've had quite the tenure with Shudder, and I'm just glad they still send me the free subscriptions. So that's really the only reason why I do it, to be honest.
I want a free.
Now that I say that, Sean is like, "Oh yeah, watch this." And I'm paying for it again.
That would be pretty funny. You get an email.
I guarantee you, this 30 minutes after this drops, I'm going to get an email from Sean going, "Oh, that's right. Yeah. About that free subscription." Gone. So I'll keep it complimentary the entire time.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, oh my God. So you are amazing. You did Mayhem, a Shudder exclusive. That movie is amazing, and we will talk about that. Also, you directed some of the Creepshow TV series, which is Meet a Reader, Familiar, Pipe Screams, and The Right Snuff. And they're all awesome. My favorite one is Pipe Screams. That one, I'm so honored to have been part of that lineage with Creepshow, and we can go into the minutia of it later. But looking back at the year that we've had, or even 2 years, I was supposed to shoot, Pipe Screams and The Right Snuff for season 2 before the pandemic hit. So season 2 was kind of up and running in February of 2020, and then the pandemic hit, and it all went to crap. But then we all came back and did it later. But looking at where I was just kind of on a filmmaking standpoint, I had just finished, not just finished, but it was a couple months removed from my last film, which was Point Blank, the movie with Anthony Mackie. And, every filmmaker is going all right, what's next? And, knowing that TV is it is such a creative force, and it's bringing in so many great people, the next year of my life would be pretty much dedicated to Creepshow. And at this point now, because
for filmmakers, it's always weird. Like you always think like, well, what have I done lately? And if you take like all 4 of those Creepshow episodes and put them together, it's kind of like a little Joe Lynch anthology in a way. You know, it's Creepshow Lynch edition, if you will. But what I love about, you know, like hearing that Pipe Screams was your favorite, I get across the board who, like, which one are people's favorites. You know, there's a lot of people who love the right stuff. There's a lot of people who love familiar or meter reader. So it's great to gauge just you know, who the person is, what their, you know, like what their loves about the genre is, because each one of those episodes is so wildly different. That's the beauty of that show, is that, especially if you get to do more than one episode, a lot of times you get to do more than one subgenre of horror. You know, you can do a creature feature, you can do a paranoid thriller, you can do a post-apocalyptic, you know, like mishmash. You can do a sci-fi episode. You know, like the fact that I can do all of those and kind of gauge what people like and don't like is really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. So for you guys watching, there will be spoilers. So if you guys do not want to hear the spoilers, just go on over to Shudder, watch Mayhem,
Get out,
watch watch Creepshow TV series. Just watch the whole series. You'll love them. So let's get started. First I want to talk about is the Creepshow TV series, but I think you covered it.
Well, no, I mean, we can talk more about it. I mean, again,
yeah. We're gonna.
I grew up with Creepshow. You know, like, and by growing up, I mean, like when 8 o'clock hit on HBO, that was when like family programming went to R-rated programming.
Yes,
and I will never forget the time where when my mom, who was a big horror fan herself, I remember her saying like, "Oh, there's this movie called Creepshow on," and I'll never forget that opening scene, because I literally looked like Joe Hill did in the opening scene with Tom Atkins. I had the bowl cut. I was reading the comics. You know, my dad was the one who was like, this horror crap. You know, whereas my mom was like going back to the bin and picking up the thing out of the trash and giving it back to me and stuff. So I immediately related. I'm like, and I had this weird thing in my head that kids weren't in horror movies. You know, I thought it was just horny teens and old people or whatever. But like to see there was a kid in this, and then next thing you know, there's the color palette with the, you know, extreme blues and reds right out of an EC comic. You know, the skeleton. You know, so I immediately grappled onto it, and then it was the humor. It was the use of the animated panels. It was just something that was so, for a kid especially, it was so pleasing to the eye. And then, you know, gnarly shit starts to happen, like in Father's Day. That one moment where that hand comes out, you know, like where you have the split diopter, and, you know, Bedelia's over here or whatever, and you have, oh wait, no, sorry. Oh wait, damn it. Here, take 3. You know, the hand comes out. It was terrifying. And ever since then, I was such a huge fan. Anytime it came on, when Fluffy from the crate would show up, or E.G. Marshall would have this stuff coming out of his neck, you know, the cockroaches. And then my mom got Scream Greats Volume 1, which was the Fangoria video that was all about Tom Savini. And I immediately ate all that up. So there was a long stretch of time until like 88 that I basically wanted to be Tom Savini. I was even like drawing on the mustache, and I was getting the leather jacket and dumping myself over, you know, mall rafters into cardboard boxes. I wasn't doing the last part. But it was just so much a part of who I became as, I know, right? But it really was like, there was that beautiful moment in time in like the mid 80s where splatter movies became big. You know, everything from, you know, you can go like Friday the 13th Part 4 to Reanimator to Evil Dead Part 2 or Return of the Living Dead. There was this weird balance of horror and very dark, you know, macabre type humor. And to me, I feel like Creepshow was one of the first films that got people into that mix of horror and comedy. So, you know, and then Creepshow 2 is a little bit less of that, you know, but we can talk about that another time. And Creepshow 3 we don't talk about. But when Greg and I had become friends through, we don't talk about Creepshow 3. Although technically you can hear Tom Savini talk about how Tales from the Dark Side, like, or I think it might have even been John Harrison, but other people around, like associated with the Laurel Entertainment Group, would always associate Tales from the Dark Side as Creepshow 3. That I will accept. I will totally accept that as an answer. But, you know, like Creepshow was so primed for TV because of the anthology format, because of like Tales from the Dark Side or Tales from the Crypt. So, you know, Greg Nicotero and I became friends for years through the Masters of Horror dinners. And then when they announced it, what's funny is that like because Greg and I would talk a lot, you know, over email, and anytime one of his episodes of The Walking Dead would play, you know, I was always so blown away by like just what he was able to get away with. Because a lot of times when you hire, you know, more technicians in terms of, you know, makeup effects artists, editors, first ADs on TV shows in the past, it was usually because they've gotten a set model and a formula, and now it's more about, because TV moves so fast, you kind of bring these artisans in to kind of make sure that things are exacting, because, you know, the showrunner in the end is the be all end all. The director's a lot of times not the creative force behind it, which is fine. I mean, especially with TV that moves so fast. But I just noticed how much I enjoyed and admired what Greg brought to the table. And it wasn't just oh man, there's going to be more than 15 zombies in this, this scene, so like let's bring the effects guy in. No, he was doing things storytelling wise, character wise, that I was really impressed with. So every time one of his episodes would air, I would write him and tell him what he liked, and he wrote me back, can you do this for every episode I do? I'm like, sure, sounds great, Greg. And then when, you know, Creepshow was announced, I immediately, I'll never forget it, I remember texting him going like, dude, it was dude. It was that relationship that Greg and I had that, kept me on his radar, because with season 1, you know, they already had the directors that they had planned. But then when season 2 came, I wrote Greg like a 5-page thesis on why I was perfect for Creepshow, and actually snail mailed it to his house. And he was like, that was a little weird. I'm like, yeah, but you know, come on. Like, you know, I would be perfect for this. And then he's like, yeah, you're right. So one trip to K&B, and we sat down and just kind of talked about, because there's another project that I was talking to him about. And he had a lot of information about that just to kind of help me for research. And he's like, well, what about Creepshow? And I'm like, yes. And then the rest is history. So there, whoop, I'm going to shut up and pass it on to you.
Pipe Screams is my favorite. The little cloggy. When I interviewed, oh my God, Daniel Krause, and
Daniel,
who wrote that, and he said such great things about you and everybody, because he was so happy that it was executed, his vision was executed. He really did appreciate it. He just like praised everybody, and I was like, oh, that was so nice.
Well, I also have his Venmo, so like I was sending him, you know, say nice things about me on Shudderary or I'll kill you. Oh well, here's $20 too. What's funny with Daniel is that like Daniel, yeah, why not, right? Well, Daniel's got such a tight connection with, you know, the Romero world. And, you know, again, myself included, you know, like we both, I think all of us in one form or another, you know, whether you're John Harrison, who's worked with him for years and gets stabbed in the ear, in Dawn of the Dead, to Nicotero, obviously, with his connection with Creepshow, and then Daniel working with, you know, George, and then like his whole estate later on with his writing. It felt very natural that Daniel would be able to provide a script that felt very much Creepshow. Because, like, if I was to give a constructive criticism, if you will, over the first season, some of the there's some episodes that I absolutely loved, and then there were some that just didn't quite feel like they would fit squarely. Because that was my whole mindset, was how can I make these episodes feel as if we wanted to put them in between original segments in the first film? You know, tonally, would they feel right? You know, between Jordy Verrill and, you know, or like Father's Day and Jordy Verrill, or would it be, you know, at the end with the cockroaches? You know, like, would they tonally, you know, feel the way I felt when I watched Creepshow back then and even now. And Pipe Screams just had everything that I wanted as a fan in an episode of Creepshow, to the point where, like, with like The Right Snuff, that one was so far removed from the usual Creepshow formula that, you know, I did a pretty extensive rewrite on that one. You know, I mean, much love to and respect to Paul and Steven, but we really kind of rehauled that thing to me. Like, just here, the thing was called The Right Snuff, and there was no snuff in it. And I was like, come on, you gotta put some of that stuff in there. But with Pipe Screams, we didn't touch it really, like, because it had the morality tale, it had the, you know, sense of humor, it had the, you know, kind of hapless protagonist that kind of leads us in, and most importantly, it had a great villain. And being able to kind of put all that stuff together and have this disgusting piece of shit be, you know, our monster, if you will. There's nothing better than getting texts from K&B sending you moving shot, like test shot footage of Cloggy, like moving along the like the floor or whatever, because originally they were going to use magnets for it, and we didn't get to do that at the end because just we didn't have time to make a raised set. So we kind of came up with other ways of doing it. But still, like, when you're getting emails from K&B going, how does this piece of shit look? And I'm like, it looks great. So, you know, like, but that all comes from the script. And I think that's something that's so important with all of those scripts. And I think that's something that the producers and the, you know, the people that are involved with the series are really smart about, is finding the right scripts, finding the right writers who know the formula of Creepshow and then can push it forward. You know, that's the thing that I loved about Right Snuff, was that it was everything that you want in a Creepshow episode, but in space. And then how do we push that further? Because you know, like, at the time when I read that script, I was like, you know, it's going to be really tough for us to pull off something that is like NASA centric. So why don't we set it in like 1968 sci-fi, where, you know, the colors of the spaceship are, you know, egregiously a different color, and everything looks very retro, and it's all beeps and boops instead of like movable screens the way it would be now. Yeah. And that, honestly, that kind of opened things up in a very creative way. But to go back to Daniel, he could not have given us a better script to kind of work with. And then from there, we just kind of had fun plugging in, you know, all the little things, everything from the style of it, which to me was, I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Delicatessen, which was this early 90s European art horror film, I guess you could say, or art like horror comedy that Janae and Caro, the guys who did City of Lost Children, and Janae went on to do like Amelie, but it had a very particular look to it. And to work with Rob Draper, the DP, and I basically, like, I would take all these pictures of Delicatessen and say, here it is. How do you make rot and rust and decay kind of beautiful? And he ran with it. So, you know, like that's really, it was just, you start with a great base, which is that script, and then you just start to kind of pile on all the creative elements, everything from the cinematography and the effects to the actors, like Eric Edelstein, who was I was a fan of because I loved him in Green Room, but more importantly, I loved him in this show called We Bare Bears that my kids watched all the time. And he just had such this, like, a lovable presence to him. And he's also like 6'12", so he's huge. And then you take Barbara Crampton, and at the time when, you know, we were in the middle of shooting this, the term Karen became kind of synonymous and became part of the pop culture lexicon. And when I threw that out at Barbara, I'm like, what if we turned her into a Karen? And then Barbara was just like, I got this. And that's the performance you get. So it's all starts from the bottom, and then you work your way up from there.
Familiar confused me a little bit.
In what way?
Because I was trying, I guess it's the story. I was trying to figure out what was the girlfriend. Like, because I know what a familiar is. I mean, if you're thinking of witchcraft or something like that, but I couldn't figure it out what she was and why he could get rid of her. I that part was just me. That was the little bit of a confusion.
No, look, it's that's the beauty of cinema in general, is that everyone can kind of take away a different idea or different feeling towards it. Familiar, that the script that Josh Malaman wrote, what was great about getting that and Meter Reader was it was my last day on season 2, and I went in just to say goodbye to Greg and Brian Whitten, the producer, and they were just like, "Hey, what do you think about coming back for season 3?" That's the biggest compliment that you can get on, especially on a TV show, when it's like, I did my job and now they want me back. Hell yes. But then they were like, well, the thing that Greg had said to me is like, I want to give you something scary and I want to give you something challenging. And with Meter Reader, just the scope of it, we knew because of the world building that it was going to be challenging on that front. But for Familiar, he wanted to do something where he was, like we would kind of peel back a lot of the more Baroque elements of what Creepshow is and try to tell something a little more grounded. I immediately, when I read it, I thought about Polanski's Repulsion, how you can kind of delve into the psyche of someone kind of going crazy, and then, whether or not it becomes where your protagonist is unreliable in a way because we're personifying all the things around him. Is the demon there? Is the demon not there? Was the demon ever there? Was the girlfriend there? And by trying to make it as ambiguous as possible, I thought that was something that was fun to explore. The biggest challenge I had on Familiar, though, was that if you look at a lot of the other Creepshow episodes, all of them pretty much, whether you talk about the movies or even the TV series, for the most part, your hero has it coming. It's a morality tale. You want to see them, with a little bit of hubris or a lot of hubris, they're being pompous in one form or another, or greedy. Greed is always a big theme. And then you see their comeuppance. Batch's character in Familiar, what did he do wrong until the very end? He was not, he kind of happened to go into this this fortune teller's shop and get his palm read. His girlfriend was the one who wanted to do it, So is it was there? I've actually heard someone have a reaction to Familiar saying that it was interesting that in most cases, in most Creepshow episodes, it would be the girlfriend's character that would be the one that we would be following because she's the one who made the decision to go into the fortune teller's shop. So her kind of, I guess, curiosity killed that cat, but we focus on Andrew. We focus on Andrew's character. So, it's of all of the 4, that's the one, I hate to say the least, but it's the one that's the least, Creepshow for me. But at the same time, to be able to, play around with protagonist perception, honestly, I enjoy the fact that you were confused, because sometimes, especially with Creepshow, they're so cut and dry when it comes to who's good, who's bad, who's getting theirs. I mean, Batch didn't, his character didn't really deserve what he got. And his paranoia drove him to that. But that, again, that's just my perspective. If you talk to Batch about it, he might have a completely different one. But when, Nicotero writes you and says, I'm designing this creature just for your episode. After I read the script and I was like, oh God, what would the demon look like? In my head, I don't know if you're familiar with Clive Barker's paintings, but he's got a fetish for demons in a lot of his paintings, and they all have the same kind of look in a way. The horns, the way that they crouch, they almost seem like gargoyles, the ones that are on top of buildings, but in a very Clive Barker sort of way. So there's probably a lot of dongs in them too. And there was just something that really responded to me about that look. And when I sent it to him, he sent back, a few that looked very similar. And then next thing I know, I get an email from him right when I land in Atlanta with the first designs of the creature. And it was terrifying. And I'm like, and he goes I think I wrote this in a Fangoria article. There's nothing crazier than having, one of your childhood heroes, because I've known Nicotero since the Scream Great days, and, his head on a fucking platter in Day of the Dead. And to have him write me and say look, I designed this personally. Don't fuck this up. You're like, oh God, I can't fuck this up. So to be able to work with that and to work with, Batch, who I was familiar with his work as an influencer, and to be able to like really ground him and work with him on a level that I don't think he was even used to before. It was great, so it's there, but that's the beauty of Creepshow, is that they're all wonderful, at least the ones that I've done. To me, like from a creative standpoint, they all pose different challenges, different stylistic opportunities, and all allowed me, even on a really tight schedule and a very limited budget, to be able to really flex my muscles and pay tribute to George and Steven and Tom and everybody that made that original movie. It's almost like paying back for that 8 p.m. showing on HBO, because like that really affected me, and hopefully I did the same for a new generation as well.
But yep. Yeah, your work is great, and guys, you got to go over there and watch it. You got to go to Shudder and watch the Creepshow TV series. All of them are good. Now we're going to talk about Mayhem. Now, that movie, oh my goodness, is amazing. It was so fun. And then I was reading the trivia and behind the scenes, and then because I watched it the first time, and then I went to go look up some information on it, and then I watched it the second time, and I was like, okay, I see what they're saying. So we will talk about that, because there's one part, I think it's in the beginning. Well, yeah. Okay, I won't say anything yet. Anyway, so Mayhem. So what is Mayhem about? Are you going to...
Wait, am I giving like the byline or like the log line synopsis?
Just a very short one.
Okay. When a deadly pandemic, see, already relevant. When a deadly pandemic that makes people lose their inhibitions affects a law firm, two unassuming people that are stuck in the complex must work together to fight their way to the top for justice and to save their own lives. Best I could do with what I got.
It sounds like a superhero movie.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, Mayhem is such a weird beast, because it's not necessarily a horror film, but it has a lot of like a horror histrionics. It's not necessarily an action film, but has a lot of action. It's, hopefully it, people see the satirical element of it as well. It's kind of like a bouillabaisse of all these different things that affected me, not just on a creative level or, fetishes that I've had as a creator. I love horror. I love action. I love comedy. I love sci-fi. I mean, Mayhem kind of provided me, just like we were talking before about with Daniel, a script that allowed me to really kind of dig deeper into the things that I was dealing with at the time. You might have seen that in your trivia notes or whatever, that I was in a corporate job when I got the script. I had finished Everly, the Salma Hayek movie. The movie came out, and one thing that people don't talk a lot about when it comes to filmmaking is that you really gotta love it to be able to keep going, because not everybody gets the 5-picture deal. Not everyone jumps on another project immediately. There are sometimes, and many filmmakers, I mean, look at Ty West. He just came out with that trailer for X a couple days ago, but he hadn't made a movie in years. And no one talks about those interim days, and that's where, if you're lucky, you get to direct TV or, direct other forms of content, or, sometimes you just got to make ends meet, and I needed to pay the bills. And when Everly came out and kind of did its thing, which was great, and thankfully, like, it's kind of stood the test of time at this point, which is awesome. But at the time, this is 2015, I needed to go back to work. I needed to pay the bills. And because I had previously worked at a company called G4, which was a video game network, and that turned into Universal NBC turned it into Esquire Network, a network for gentlemen. Why they hired me, I have no clue. I kind of relegated myself to this job, and I worked there for about almost a year, and it was I mean, they allowed me some creativity, but again, like not the kind that I feel comfortable with. So I just felt very, very dead inside, I guess you could say. And then this script comes along, and it was as if someone had written it. The way I read it, it felt like someone wrote it for me. I felt immediately connected to Derek, the character who ended up becoming Derek Cho once we hired Steven. But, the original script was very much what it is now. Here's this mid-level lawyer who is kind of coasting on his own laurels. He's somewhat, accelerating, but he's kind of, stuck in a lateral move situation where he's not really happy at his job. And then this thing comes along and just kind of changes everything and gives him an opportunity to not just defend himself, but do what's right for, I guess for his own good through ultraviolence, basically. Not that I was going to, go postal on anybody at my office. I wanted to. But those are the things that, like, everything from the coffee mug, that was something that happened to me. Someone stole my coffee mug one day. And if you've ever worked a corporate job, you know exactly what that feels like, where you feel violated. Like, who stole my mug? All these things that I felt like I could instill in both the storytelling, but even just like all the little details about like corporate life and what it's like to be kind of feel like a cog, and how you can hopefully break out of it. In the end, I mean, spoiler alert, things work out for Derek and Melanie, and Derek ends up kind of quitting his job, but also becomes an artist. And that the painting that he's making, to me, is mayhem. If it was me, so that's kind of what, I saw myself as Derek, both on the page when I read it in my cubicle. And that really did just inform every decision that I made in creating Mayhem, as both like kind of a comment on corporate life, as an ultraviolet violent action comedy, and then when you have actors like Steven and Samara who are completely on board with your vision, and they feel ownership of those characters too. It was 25 of the best shooting days of my life. And then this was in Serbia, we shot this movie in Serbia because I had shot Everly there, and it was just really cheap. And when the money man came along and said, like, I have money for this, because we had been developing it for almost a year, to the point where there was nothing more we can do on the script. It was like Matthias and I worked really hard on just kind of really finessing the script, getting it, like all my stuff in, and and him feeling like it was part of his script as well. And then a financier came along who was huge in that he said that the script was not cast contingent, and that means that, like, I'll give you the money, but you have to have Bruce Willis or Nicolas Cage or Steven Seagal or any one of these like very marketable like names and faces to sell the movie. And when we were originally going out, it was going to be 10 million, but it had to be a big name. And to be honest, I don't think anyone was right for it on the list that we were given, or the one that we compiled. And then this financier came along and said, I will give you like 2 to 3 million, and you can do it wherever you want, and you can do it with whoever you want, and I will not get in the way at all. Which was, for a creator, that's huge. You don't have someone who's telling you like, oh, you can put my daughter in it, or like, I have notes, and you get like notes that are longer than the script. This guy just came along and was just very freeing with us. And that allowed us to be able to hire someone like Steven, who was still on The Walking Dead at the time, had only done one other feature in a small part, but there was something about him. There was an everyman quality. I like to call it the Dreyfuss effect. But there was a Richard Dreyfuss-esque feeling about Steven, and especially when this was around the time on The Walking Dead when they did the fake out death on Steven, like when he fell off the dumpster and everyone thought, oh my God, he's dead. Glenn's gone. And then he wasn't, which was, I was one of the people who was like, oh, that's bullshit. But I remember the moment when he fell off, and then it felt like Twitter just melted, because everyone was just so heartbroken over the fact that this character that we all grew up with for 5 years up to that point died. And that was the kind of quality I wanted, that kind of empathy and that everyman quality for Derek. And I also knew that he knew stunts. He didn't seem to mind having blood splashed on him every once in a while. And he seemed like a cool dude. And then once we talked, the first time that we talked, I remember being in a closet at my job, my corporate office job, and I closed myself into an office supply closet just because I couldn't find anywhere. I wasn't going to talk to this dude about a movie that I was going to make in my cubicle. So I closed up, and I was stuck in there for an hour. People probably thought that I was hooking up with someone, but it was just me and Steven just becoming total bros. And then from there, and then Samara came along, and then the rest is history. But yeah, so it's my most personal film for many reasons. That being one of them, in that I can completely relate to Derek, and I think that's important as a filmmaker, is that in one form or another that you can relate to your protagonist, or at least empathize with them. And for me, it was Derek. Derek was me, and I was Derek, and we kind of Steven and I took that journey together, which was great.
Oh, okay. There was a lot of little things that I really did like about that film. One was the eyes, where it was only one that was red, and to me that kind of symbolized that they were still human, they were still aware, but a part of them was that anger buildup. So like you said, this virus makes them just suppress the one thing that keeps them from doing these outbursts and things like that. So every you could tell that they were still there. They're still who they are, but they have all this rage and want to tell you how they really felt. Which I laughed out loud when he first, they were rubbing his eye, and he was going to go up to the 9, go up to the corporate. He got in the elevator and he looked at himself and was like, "Fuck you." I laughed.
I have done that.
Now, there's something I read that there was a sex scene where two people were actually having sex. Is that true?
Yes,
it looked
that is
like
true.
it.
And it was not. It was all right. Let me set the stage. So, for all those who are like, real sex scene on a movie in Shudder, hold on, boop, and then they go right to it without any context. So, as Derek and Melanie are kind of game of death going up each floor from, they get trapped in the basement. Everyone's infected, including them. They decide, that they want to kind of get revenge. She's been, her house is going to be sold by the firm, and he's just been fired. So they both have very valid reasons to go up to the the corporate brass at the top and have a conversation, which obviously will devolve into violence. But their journey up the ladder allows them to kind of confront all these different characters that we met before. With all very clever nicknames, like the Siren or the Reaper, and the Reaper at that point is the HR guy.
Oh,
which, if you've ever worked a corporate job, who the Reaper is. Dallas Roberts, the guy who we hired, just happened to be he's an American. He happened to be in London at the time because his wife was the production designer on the Harry Potter play that was being made there. And there was always something about him that looked very much like the author Bret Easton Ellis. And that's the kind of voice that I heard. If you've ever heard Bret Easton Ellis, the writer, talk, he did Lesson Zero and American Psycho. He's got a very calm way of talking, even though he's describing how he's, fucking a corpse. He's just very, very loquacious with the way he speaks. Very calm. The kind of person you would want to be able to walk into an office and say, "You're fired. Yeah, I don't care. Bye now."
And you know what?
That's the kind of quality I wanted for him.
I actually, when I got canned from my job, the HR there was like that. He was very calm. It was soulless, didn't care. So when I saw
exactly, completely soulless, you got it. That's I've been in that situation. Luckily, I've never had that talk, but I've seen it happen to people. I've gotten hired from these people, like, welcome to the company. Do you have any questions? You're like, no, I don't. Please, go find a coffin to go sleep in. But to get back to this, so after they kill, spoiler, they deal with the Reaper. They send a video message to the boss, and we needed a scene where Melanie, all shot on a phone, was going to send a video message to the boss, and it was supposed to feel that way, like very much like a shaky handheld video message that someone sends, which was shot on my phone. Gotta love production. So we needed all these extras to kind of be going crazy. And again, we shot this in Serbia. There was, luckily, there's some great crew, English-speaking crew from all over, from Bulgaria, Sofia, they come in droves. But for the most part, I'd say the set was about 70 to 80% Serbian-speaking native. So a lot of times we had translators, or we had like our first ADs who could speak both languages and be able to relay information to people. And we had created a chart for all the extras to know what stage of madness they were in. There's stage 1, they're a little irritated or what have you, all the way to stage 5, where it's just like, it's like that scene in 21 Jump Street where they like kind of show the progress of the drug that they take, and it's just like beast mode, and they're just going crazy at one point. So we were at that point. We were in like stage 3 or whatever, where people were really starting to lose their inhibitions, drop all of their drop their id and just kind of go crazy. And we personally picked out all the extras that we had there. We were only given a certain amount. I remember going like, that's not enough extras. So we actually have them running back and forth and running behind the camera, so it feels like it's bigger at points. Or for you Sam Raimi fans out there, it's called fake shemping. But we had this one couple, this very attractive, couple who was there, and I had said to them, because the whole point was that we wanted everything. We wanted fighting, we wanted fucking, we wanted what would happen if you just stripped all that away. And they're obviously in corporate America, and there's a lot of people who are running into the closets because they have like a crush on the person that sits 2 cubicles down from them or whatever, and they're hooking up or what have you. And here it's like, well, now they're all infected with this thing. They're not going to worry about the closet. They're going to do it right in front of everybody. Who gives a shit? It's like, we're sick. Why not? So when we had this couple in, I was like, they're perfect, because they were also a married couple. So I was like, it's hard to kind of take like, okay, you over there and you over there, you've never met before. I want you guys to make out in the background. It was so much easier for us to say, like, you guys are a couple. What do you feel comfortable with? That's exactly what I said. Like, what do you guys feel comfortable with? And then the second AD asked them, and they just went like, whatever you want, and like, or in so many words. I'm like, you know what? I want you to just go at it, just go crazy, just go doggy style. Like, you'll be in the background, and we'll see you a little bit. So just make sure by the time we get over here, you're just going for it. And they said, okay, it sounds good. That's all I gave. Now, in most cases, you would think that they would just simulate the scene. Not so much. After the first take, and we did it 3 times. After the first take, there was a very particular smell in the room. It was already hot from, all the people running around. Just the temperature in the room was just like blazing because. I'm just gonna make sure that my thing doesn't, like my iPad doesn't die at the moment where we're gonna like get to the good stuff. But we get like there was just this weird funk in the room, and my first AD came over and said like, I think those people in the background are actually having sex. I'm like, what? Really? Hold on, I need to investigate. And I walk over, and the guy is like engaged, if you will, or engorged with his lover. And they just looked at me, and I felt like Jack Horner in Boogie Nights, where I'm like just kind of having a conversation while these two people are like in the middle of intercourse. And I even like looked to my producer and I said, "Is this okay? Are we allowed to do this?" They're like, "As long as you don't see penis or vagina or any insertion, then it's just happening in the background. What can you do?" And I'm like, I was like, I don't condone this, but let's go back to one and do it again. And then we ended up using the second take. And I think in the second take, they were like, so I guess this is okay. Okay, let's really go for it. But yeah, and like, it was not planned. I did not, force these people to do it. I'm just putting that out there. They did it completely consensual on their own accord. It just so happens that one extra's penis fell into another and like his wife's vagina. And we have movie history there. So. Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
Wow.
That's what happens when you make movies in Serbia. Crazy shit happens.
Wow. I would think no, I don't want to think.
No, go
because
ahead.
When I read about it, I was like, really? Because when you look at it, it just looks like any other scene. Like you don't see anything, but knowing.
Believe me, I didn't because I was shooting it too, and I'm very aware of like everything that's going on in the frame, and like in the background, I was just like, yeah, they look like two people simulating sex, and it was more than simulated sex, and I think on we did it 3 times, and on the third take, I actually, just to be safe, told them not to. What's funny is that when we did that third take, they sucked. They were not there. Like, not that they were doing the same exact position, but I think that they had like changed up positions. And I told the second AD, just to be safe, let's not have them go all the way. Let's just I want to make sure. And everything across the board. It might have even been Steven who kind of fucked up his lines a little bit just so that we would have to use the take before. Very smart of him. But yeah, it was just one of those weird kind of like in the moment occurrences that just happened on that set, and that happened a lot. Not the sex part, just a lot of as I like to call it, like serendipity, if you will, where just like spur of the moment things, or spurt of the moment things, if you want to call it with that one scene. But just these weird, fun things happen when you get this creative collective together. Great things happen. None of this would have happened if we didn't have the kind of chemistry, I guess, everybody. If we didn't have any of that, I don't think the movie would have been nearly as successful as it has been, because of everybody working together and collaborating and having a great time doing it.
Were you supposed to be the IT guy? Like,
nope.
Or
no.
How did you get down
it was
there?
Well, I usually end up being in all my movies purely out of necessity. It's not like I gotta read a part for myself. No, it's usually somebody didn't show up, or we can't find the right person, and I might as well save the production $1 by just doing an uncredited cameo. And that's happened since Wrong Turn 2. It's happened on Knights of Badassdom, Chillerama, yeah, in a way, and then same with Everly. We couldn't find a good SWAT team guy, so I ended up playing him. And in this case, we had exhausted every single English-speaking Serbian that didn't have an accent, or that we could hire for this part. There was no one left, and we just couldn't find the right person for it. And we auditioned at least 25 people for the part. And then, I think it was like a week or 2 into production, I just said, you know what, guys, fuck it, I'll do it. I'll just let me do it. And they're like, you sure you want to do it? I'm like, yeah, just don't tell Steven and Samara. Like, I want to keep it a secret. So I grew a really thick beard the entire production. And then that scene was their last day of shooting. We had another day of pickups, but that scene was the one that we were kind of ending our journey together. That was going to be the last thing. So no one told them. And then I got into the guys. I did the whole mustache thing. And you know what, to be honest, like, that was also cathartic for me, because I got to kind of live out the fantasy of being at my corporate office and going, I want to just smash this goddamn keyboard like on everything and anything, and just see keys flying, you know. So this to me was like a dream come true. It was a little bit of therapy. But yeah, when Steven and Samara walked in and saw me at the table, like at the desk with the mustache, they went like, no way. And we had such a great time. I mean, you can see it in the scene.
Yeah.
Like, everyone is having a blast. If anything, Steven and Samara were just kind of like, we're just going to kind of step back and play second fiddle and let you do your thing, and we'll just be there for like all the reactions. But yeah, it was not intended until like midway through production. But yeah, Ray the IT guy has become quite the cultural icon. I get so many people who come up to me and say, I'm Ray the IT guy also. I'm like, I know, right? Corporate America sucks. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It looked like a lot of fun. It looked like one of those films that, man, I wish I was in it. Because it just looked like everyone had a good time. It felt so relatable. Because, you know, I never worked at a corporate building, but I have been in situations where, you know, you try to move up, and then once you get there, it's harder than you think, and then you're kind of like the scapegoat of any kind of tragedy that's going on. It's like, it's your fault, but I wasn't even involved. That kind of sucks. I mean,
that's something that, I mean, that kind of informed the voiceover as well, because I had to think not everybody is going to relate to having to wear a tie every day or work this, you know, corporate job like people. I wanted to make sure that everybody in one form or another can put themselves into Derek's shoes, where everyone's had a shitty job, or everyone's felt like you know, a cog in a huge machine, and felt like you know, inhuman at points. And that's the reason why we were very and especially when Steven got cast, because like he's just got such a great conversational voice, the kind that you want when you hear it, like sitting next to you at a bar. You go, I want to strike up a conversation with this guy. That was our approach to this. Like when I sat Steven down and we did the VO, I said, imagine if you're on your second beer and you're, you know, sitting next to another person, and you strike up a conversation, and then you tell your story. And I didn't want it to be, you know, very formalized. I didn't want it to be like a film noir where it feels like, you know, so let me tell you a story, or once upon a time. It was more, hey, listen, did you ever hear this thing? It's crazy. Did you hear about that crazy thing that happened in that building? Yeah, I was there. It's fucking gnarly. Like, even some of the stuff that he says, like, you know, the way he said it was there specifically designed to make it so that you felt like you were hanging out with him, not that he was telling you a story. And I mean, that's testament to Steven Yeun as an actor. He's just that great that he could take something like that and make everybody feel like they're going on the journey with him. You know, you don't have to be a lawyer in a firm, or, you know, a producer at a studio production company, or, you know, accounts viable at an insurance company. Everybody has been there in one form or another, and here's a way that you can at least watch cathartically and hopefully enjoy it along the way.
Would you ever want to do a full-fledged zombie film?
Well, I kind of have with Chillerama. Because I did the bridging stories, which we called Zombie Movie, because I'm I'm clever, or not. But that one was my homage to the splatter movies, you know, like the Bad Tastes and the Dead Alives, and but also Joe Dante movies, and then definitely had, because it was zombies, it was a big thing. Would I want to make a more serious one? Absolutely. If the right story came along, like, I would love to do something. I'm actually doing something now that is kind of an offshoot of zombies. It's being scripted now with my writing partner. You know, it's let's just say that it definitely has connections to Romero in a way, without giving too much away. But yeah, like, just to be able to get the opportunity to, as long as it's something that feels socially relevant too, because we grew up with Romero, and Romero was using zombies as like a mirror onto our society. So, you know, if there's a way that we can do something that is a little bit different, but if there's something that we can do that also reflects our society and our culture a little bit, that's something that I would definitely be into.
Okay. Well, I hope it happens.
Me too.
You guys, you guys have to check out Mayhem. It's streaming right now on Shudder. It is a great film. Also, once again, thank you so much, Joe Lynch. I may
It was my
have
pleasure.
not said,
Seriously, this
I
was
may
great.
Have, okay, I may have not said anything that much during this one, but you guys, he was saying things that I had written down. So I let him just go. He was answering all my questions.
To be fair, she sent me all the questions, and I was like, "I'm just going to knock this out in one fell swoop." No, it's not true.
I mean, because
not at all.
Everything
but look,
I was
if you
go
ahead.
I was going to say everything that I was going to ask. Most of it you were answering along the way, so that's why I just kept mostly quiet, because I didn't want to interrupt. I love what you were saying. You let him go. Just let them flow. Just let it go.
It's the situation where, like, you know, I've been to enough horror movie conventions as a kid, and even today, like with the Movie Crypt, the podcast I do with Adam Green, we've done that enough. And, you know, like, look, part of the reason why I make horror movies and stuff like that is I love the conversation that people can have afterwards, whether it's my films, whether that's a springboard to talk about other films, just like what we were talking about before with, having Derek feel like he's at a bar and you're just having a conversation. The second that I meet someone who's got a Return of the Living Dead, t-shirt on, or mentions in passing that they just seen Possession or something, like, I want to have a conversation with you. Like, I used to work at a video store, and, like all of us nerds back in the 90s. And, to be able to not just go, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Scream 2 is out, but have you ever seen The Prowler?" And then you have a 10-minute conversation about, the effects in The Prowler, or which Friday the 13th is the best, and why is it always Friday the 13th Part 4, until recently when I started really falling in love with Part 5, but that's another story. That's the sort of thing that, like, gets me going, so any chance that I can get to, have a good conversation with great people like yourself, I take the opportunity. So if somebody, bails out in the next couple months or whatever, give me a call anytime. I'll be more than happy to hang out some more.
Of course. But number 4? It's Friday the 13th 4. I like
what, Friday 4? See, all right, we're having this conversation next time. I'm saving it, because I'll end up going on for, because
that'll be another
minutes,
hour. So. I really love number 3, and I think I love number 3 because I saw that one at the drive-in.
That's the thing. Everyone has different experiences with that series, and, like, so a lot of times the people's favorites are the ones they saw first. Like, I saw Friday 2 first, and that's one of my favorite ones as well. 4 just became kind of like the perfect symbiosis of everything I loved about that series, and every time I watch it, it always seems to hold up, whereas other ones don't seem to hold up as well, or ones that I hated back in the day, now I can't get enough of, like 5. But again, we will save that for the next conversation, I promise.
Okay. Until next time. But thank you so much for joining me on Shudderary. Subscribe, and don't forget to leave a comment. But thank you for this experience, Joe.
My pleasure. Next time, like, subscribe, and talk about my hair. So go ahead. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
You guys,
sorry, I'm just going to keep interrupting you. Until when? Until next time? When? Was it next time? Or this time?
Next time.
Or later on? No, when? Next time or next crime?
All right, guys.